The day started like any other in the bustling city, with people rushing through the streets, cars honking in the distance, and the soft hum of conversation blending with the sound of footsteps on the pavement. In the middle of all this ordinary chaos, a cafe tucked between two tall buildings offered a quiet refuge, its glass doors reflecting the bright sunlight and giving a hint of warmth and comfort inside. The aroma of fresh coffee, baked pastries, and warm bread floated through the air, inviting passers-by to step inside for a moment of peace. A soft chime rang as the door opened, and a woman entered who immediately caught the attention of everyone in the cafe. She was not just anyone, she carried an aura of confidence and elegance that made heads turn, not because she wanted to be noticed, but because her presence naturally commanded attention. Her designer dress fit perfectly, simple yet luxurious, and her heels clicked softly on the wooden floor, blending with the soft music that played in the background. She had a calm smile on her face, but there was a spark in her eyes, a hint of curiosity and excitement, like someone ready to discover something new in the ordinary. The cafe itself was lively but not noisy, with small groups of people chatting over coffee, a few working quietly on their laptops, and couples sharing laughter over breakfast. The sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting patterns on the floor and the tables, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee seemed to make everything slower, softer, more comforting. It was the kind of place where anyone could forget the world outside for a few minutes, and today, it would be the setting for something extraordinary. The woman walked slowly, taking in the environment with interest, noticing the small details that most people overlooked. She admired the simple yet elegant decor, the paintings on the walls, and the delicate flowers placed on each table. She moved with grace, her eyes scanning the room, not hurriedly, but with the quiet curiosity of someone who had seen a lot in life but still found joy in little things. People glanced at her, some whispering, some staring openly, because even in a crowded cafe, someone like her would naturally stand out, not because of her wealth or status, but because of her calm confidence and the way she seemed to notice and respect everything around her. She chose a table near the window, a spot where she could watch the world outside while enjoying her coffee. As she settled down, she placed her designer handbag gently on the chair beside her and took a moment to relax. It was as if she had stepped out of her busy life for just a few minutes to enjoy a simple human moment. The waitress approached, greeting her politely with a warm smile, and the billionaire woman returned the smile, her eyes scanning the waitress not just casually, but with a sense of quiet admiration and interest. There was something about the environment, about the people in it, that made her feel present in a way she rarely felt in her daily life. Around her, the cafe continued to buzz with life, cups clinking, soft laughter, and conversations blending together into a comfortable background hum. Yet, she seemed to exist in a bubble of her own, fully observing the world but not rushing it. Her presence had a subtle effect on the room, a calm energy that made the busy environment feel slightly slower, more intimate. Like everyone had a chance to notice each other for a moment. She took a sip of her coffee, the warm liquid giving her a small smile of comfort, and in that moment, she noticed something, a small detail that would change the course of her day, something that most people would walk past without a second glance. It was ordinary at first glance, a simple necklace worn by a waitress as she moved between tables, but there was something about the necklace, the way it caught the light, the story it seemed to hold, that made the billionaire woman pause and truly look. For a moment, she froze, not in hesitation, but in recognition, like she had glimpsed something deeply personal and meaningful, in a room full of ordinary moments. This small detail stood out, and it drew her attention in a way that wealth, status, and experience could not prepare her for. The cafe, the people, the laughter, all of it became a soft background as she focused on that necklace, the sparkle, the story, the life behind it. And in that quiet, ordinary moment, a story began to unfold, a story that would move both of them in ways they could never imagine. The day started like any other, but it was about to become extraordinary, all because a billionaire woman chose to notice something simple, yet profoundly human. The waitress moved through the cafe with a quiet confidence, each step purposeful yet graceful. She had been working there for years, and the rhythm of the place was second nature to her. Every table, every customer, every little detail was something she navigated with ease. Her smile was effortless, warm, and genuine, a small light that seemed to brighten the faces of everyone she served. There was a calmness about her that made people feel comfortable instantly, a kind of invisible charm that drew attention without demanding it. She wore a simple uniform, neatly pressed, practical, but there was something more that caught the eye, something personal and unique. A necklace resting delicately around her neck. It wasn't flashy or overly expensive, yet it shimmered softly in the sunlight streaming through the windows. Each movement she made caused the tiny pendant to catch the light just so, as if it had a story it was waiting to tell. The necklace was unusual, not in design but in the energy it carried, something quiet but undeniable, a piece of herself that she carried with pride and meaning. As she moved from table to table, taking orders, serving drinks, and answering questions, there was an easy grace in the way she interacted with people. Her laughter was soft but genuine, filling the small space with warmth without overpowering the natural hum of conversation. She remembered regular customers' favorite drinks, called out to children with a gentle nickname, and somehow managed to make every single person feel seen, not just as a customer, but as a person with a story. The billionaire woman noticed her immediately, not just because of her presence, but because there was something magnetic about the way she carried herself. Something about the waitress radiated quiet dignity, a strength wrapped in simplicity. She didn't speak loudly, she didn't demand attention, but there was an unmistakable aura about her, a subtle power in the way she existed fully in the moment, aware, graceful, and unapologetically herself. It was rare for the billionaire woman to feel drawn to someone this way, someone so ordinary in appearance yet extraordinary in essence. The necklace seemed to tell its own story, and the waitress wore it without knowing the attention it would attract. She moved naturally, unaware of the careful, almost reverent gaze she had drawn from the elegant woman sitting by the window. To her, it was just a piece of jewelry, something personal, something that reminded her of her family, her past, or a small victory she had earned. But to the billionaire woman, it glimmered like a signal, a thread connecting two lives from very different worlds. The waitress stopped by a table to take an order, jotting down details quickly and efficiently, yet, even in her professional manner, there was softness in her eyes, a kindness that made people trust her instantly. She laughed at a customer's joke, nodded politely at a complaint, and moved on, each action smooth, practiced, yet full of warmth. There was no rush in her movements, no hint of irritation, no pretense, only a genuine presence, a woman fully engaged in her life and her work. It was easy to overlook such a person in the middle of a busy cafe, but the billionaire woman could not look away. She studied the small details, the way her hands moved while serving coffee, the delicate tilt of her head when listening, the way her necklace caught the light in fleeting moments. It was as if the waitress carried a small universe of her own within her, full of stories, emotions, and quiet triumphs, waiting for someone to notice, to appreciate it, and to connect. At that moment, the world outside the cafe faded, the chatter of other customers became background noise, and the clinking of cups softened into silence. The billionaire woman felt a pull, a sudden awareness that there was something deeply human unfolding right in front of her, something ordinary yet profound, simple yet unforgettable. The waitress's presence was magnetic, not because of what she wore or where she worked, but because she existed with honesty, with quiet pride, and with an unspoken story waiting to be acknowledged. And so, the stage was set. The waitress continued her work, unaware of the extraordinary impact she was about to have on someone who had seen and experienced almost everything in the world. It was a quiet, ordinary cafe, yet in that very ordinary moment, something extraordinary was about to begin, a connection that would bridge worlds, hearts, and experiences in a way neither of them could have anticipated. As the waitress moved gracefully through the cafe, carrying plates of food and cups of steaming coffee, the billionaire woman couldn't take her eyes off the necklace. It wasn't just the sparkle or the shine, it was something deeper, something almost magnetic, drawing her attention like a quiet whisper in a crowded room. She leaned slightly forward in her seat, her hand resting on her coffee cup, and her mind began to notice the smallest details. The way the pendant swung slightly as the waitress bent to serve a customer, the tiny reflection of sunlight that danced across the cafe floor, even the way her fingers brushed lightly against it, it all seemed to tell a story waiting to be seen. For a moment, the billionaire woman felt an unexpected chill, a sense of connection that she hadn't anticipated. It was as if the necklace carried a memory, a moment frozen in time that somehow resonated deeply with her own experiences. Her heart beat a little faster, and her eyes widened slightly, not in disbelief, but in recognition of something pure, something real, Something beyond material wealth or status. It was rare for her to pause in such a way, to feel completely present. In a single moment without the distractions of her fast-paced life. The waitress moved closer to her table to refill her water, and as their eyes met briefly, the billionaire woman noticed something else, a softness, a vulnerability, and at the same time, an unspoken strength in the waitress's gaze. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but to her, it was magnetic, a spark that illuminated the story hidden behind that delicate necklace. For the first time in a long while, she felt completely seen herself, not as a public figure or a wealthy woman, but as a human being capable of deep empathy. Her mind raced with questions, but not in a loud or chaotic way. They were quiet thoughts, reflections about the life of the woman in front of her, about what struggles she might have faced, the joys she might have celebrated, and the meaning behind that simple yet striking necklace. She realized that the small piece of jewelry represented more than fashion. It was a symbol, a personal testament to a journey that she had yet to fully understand. Yet, in that moment, she felt the weight of its significance, the story it carried, and the connection it created between them. The cafe seemed to shrink around her, the background chatter fading into silence. The clatter of cups and the soft laughter of other customers became distant noises as her focus remained fixed on the waitress and her necklace. Every little movement the waitress made seemed amplified, meaningful, like a language without words. The way she adjusted the chain, the gentle sway of the pendant, even the brief pause as she leaned down to listen to a customer, all of it felt like a message waiting to be received. And for the billionaire woman, she received it, fully. It was a moment of clarity, of understanding, a rare instance where two people from completely different worlds intersected in a way that was entirely human, entirely emotional, and entirely transformative. She felt her chest tighten slightly, a lump forming in her throat, a mix of admiration, empathy, and awe. It wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was recognition. The recognition of a story worth honoring, a life worth acknowledging, a person worth seeing beyond the surface. The waitress moved past, carrying her tray with the same calm elegance, unaware of the profound impact she had already made on the woman seated by the window. And yet, even without words or gestures, a bridge had been formed, a connection created purely through observation, awareness, and the recognition of something deeply human. The billionaire woman realized that moments like these were rare, that the universe had a way of presenting extraordinary experiences in the most ordinary places. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to pause completely, to absorb not just the visual beauty of the necklace, but the invisible story it carried. The recognition was immediate, powerful, and overwhelming, like a silent understanding passing between two souls, and she knew, deep in her heart, that this moment would stay with her long after she left the cafe. It was a moment that required no explanation, no words, only presence, awareness, and a willingness to see someone fully. And in that brief, quiet instant, a simple necklace became the key to an unforgettable encounter, a moment where two lives, worlds apart in wealth, experience, and circumstance, were drawn together by something invisible yet undeniable, something pure, something real, something that neither of them could have predicted, but both would feel forever. As the waitress moved gracefully from table to table, serving customers with her usual warmth, the billionaire woman couldn't stop thinking about that necklace. There was something almost magnetic about it, something that hinted at a story far deeper than its delicate design. Her curiosity grew, not out of mere fascination with jewelry, but out of a quiet desire to understand the life and journey of the woman wearing it. She had spent years surrounded by luxury, beauty, and material possessions. Yet this simple piece of jewelry held more meaning in its subtle way than anything she had ever owned. It wasn't long before the waitress returned to her table to take an order, and the billionaire woman decided to speak, her voice calm but filled with genuine interest. "That's a beautiful necklace, may I ask about it?" she said softly, careful not to startle her. The waitress paused for a moment, a small, thoughtful smile forming on her lips. It was rare for anyone to notice it in such a sincere way. Most people saw it as decoration, something pretty, but never paused to ask about the story it carried. The waitress hesitated slightly, then began to speak. Her voice was soft but steady, and as she talked, the room seemed to fade around her, leaving only the words, the necklace, and the presence of the woman listening. "This necklace," she said, touching the pendant lightly, was given to me by my grandmother before she passed away. She always told me that no matter where life takes me, I should carry a piece of her strength and love with me. I wear it every day to remind myself of where I come from, and that no matter how hard things get, I have the courage to keep going." The billionaire woman listened intently, her eyes fixed on the necklace and the face of the woman telling its story. She could feel the weight of the sentiment behind it, the countless small struggles and victories woven into the tiny pendant. It wasn't just a necklace, it was a symbol of resilience, love, and hope, something far more valuable than gold or diamonds, something money could never buy, something that could only be earned through life itself. As the waitress continued, she shared more details about her journey, about the long hours, the challenges of balancing work and family, the moments of doubt that sometimes made her question herself, but through it all, the necklace remained a constant companion, a reminder that her grandmother's wisdom and love were always with her. Even on the hardest days, when the cafe felt overwhelming, the necklace gave her strength to smile, to serve, and to keep moving forward. The billionaire woman felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had seen power, wealth, and influence her entire life, yet none of it came close to the quiet strength and courage represented by this small piece of jewelry. She realized that the waitress's story wasn't just about loss or hardship, it was about triumph, resilience, and the ability to carry love forward despite life's challenges. She was struck by how such an ordinary moment, in an ordinary cafe, could hold such extraordinary meaning. For a moment, neither woman spoke, both were lost in the weight of the story, the simplicity and depth of it. The billionaire woman felt her chest tighten, a mixture of admiration and empathy swelling inside her. She wanted to say something, but words felt insufficient. How could she capture the beauty of courage and love in a single sentence? How could she express the deep respect she felt for a life that had quietly overcome so much? The waitress, noticing the intense gaze of the woman across from her, felt a flicker of recognition too. She could sense that this was not just casual curiosity, but genuine admiration. Someone was seeing her fully, not just as a server in a cafe, but as a person with a story, a past, and a strength that mattered. That recognition, silent but powerful, created a bridge between them, an invisible thread connecting two very different lives in a shared moment of humanity. In that quiet, almost sacred exchange, the billionaire woman realized that the necklace was more than jewelry. The waitress realized that her story mattered, that it could touch someone else's heart, that even the smallest acts of acknowledgement could create profound emotional connections, and in that moment, the ordinary cafe became a place where life, love, strength, and human connection converged, setting the stage for a moment neither of them would ever forget. The moment hung in the air like a delicate thread, stretching quietly between the billionaire woman and the waitress. Neither spoke at first, yet the weight of the story, the necklace, and the shared understanding filled the space with an invisible intensity. The billionaire woman felt something she rarely experienced, a pull at her heart that made her pause and breathe more slowly. Her mind, usually filled with meetings, numbers, and obligations, fell completely silent, leaving only the raw emotion of connection. It started as a small tightening in her chest, almost imperceptible, but gradually it grew, spreading warmth and a strange vulnerability through her body. She realized that what she was feeling was admiration, yes, but also empathy, a deep recognition of another human being's courage, strength, and life story. The waitress, still unaware of the magnitude of the moment, moved gracefully around the tables. But even in her simple, kind gestures, she radiated resilience and authenticity. The billionaire woman's eyes welled up, and for a brief instant, she struggled to maintain composure. She had been surrounded by wealth, luxury, and privilege all her life, yet none of it had ever touched her heart in the way this small, unassuming necklace, and the story behind it, had. Here was a woman who had carried love, loss, and perseverance quietly, without complaint, without seeking attention, and yet her life, her story, had a weight far more profound than anything money could buy. She felt an urge to reach out, to express the depth of what she was feeling, not in a transactional way, not with gifts or gestures of wealth, but in pure, human acknowledgement. She wanted to say, without words, I see you, I understand you, and your strength matters. Yet words alone felt inadequate. They seemed too small, too fragile, too ordinary to carry the magnitude of what her heart wanted to express. The emotion built steadily, swelling like a tide, and suddenly, without warning, the billionaire woman could no longer contain it. Tears began to form, welling up in her eyes and spilling down her cheeks. They were not tears of sadness, nor of guilt, but of awe, admiration, and a profound human connection. For a moment, the busy cafe faded entirely. The hum of conversation and clinking of cups became distant and unimportant. The world had narrowed to the presence of this one woman, this one story, this one life that had touched her so deeply. The waitress noticed the change immediately, pausing mid-step as she saw the tears glistening in the billionaire woman's eyes. At first, she was startled, unsure if she had done something wrong, but then, as she observed the sincerity, the raw emotion in her gaze, she realized that this was something entirely different, something beautiful, something that required no explanation, no words, only mutual recognition of a shared human moment. Other customers glanced over curiously, sensing the unusual intensity, but most were too caught up in their own lives to notice the depth of the encounter. It was private, intimate, yet entirely public. The billionaire woman's tears spoke volumes, telling a story that words could never capture. The waitress, touched by this unexpected display of emotion, felt her own heart swell, a quiet pride mixing with humility. She had lived a life of challenges and victories, and now, someone else saw it. Truly saw it. In that moment, the billionaire woman understood something essential about life, about connection, about the quiet beauty of noticing and acknowledging another person's journey. Wealth, power, and influence could open doors, yes, but they could never replicate the impact of genuine empathy and recognition. She felt a wave of gratitude, not just for the story she had been allowed to witness, but for the reminder that even small moments, small acts, small gestures, could carry immense emotional weight. The emotion was too big for silence, yet words were still inadequate, so she reached out, slowly, instinctively, her hands extending toward the waitress in a gesture that needed no explanation. It was not formal, not staged, not calculated, but completely sincere, raw, and human, and as their eyes met, a quiet understanding passed between them, a recognition that transcended class, status, and circumstance. That this was a moment to be felt, to be honored, and to be remembered. For both women, time seemed to pause, the cafe fading away entirely, leaving only the weight of human emotion, the depth of story, and the undeniable impact of truly seeing another person. And in that shared silence, the billionaire woman's heart opened fully, ready to express what words could not contain. The moment had been building silently, a quiet crescendo of emotion that neither the billionaire woman nor the waitress had expected. The tears in the billionaire woman's eyes shimmered in the soft cafe light, and for a brief, suspended instant, everything else, people, tables, cups, even the hum of conversation, seemed to fade into the background. There was only this space between them, charged with human connection, with recognition, with the unspoken understanding that something extraordinary was happening. The billionaire woman felt an irresistible pull toward the waitress, a need to bridge the invisible distance between them. Her heart pounded with the weight of gratitude, empathy, and admiration all at once. She had entered the cafe as a stranger, a figure of wealth and influence, but now she felt profoundly human, humbled and moved by the story she had been allowed to witness, the necklace, the journey it represented, the life it symbolized. It all converged in a moment of clarity and awe that demanded expression. Without a word, she leaned forward slowly, carefully, as if approaching something sacred. Her hands, slightly trembling, reached toward the waitress, and for a heartbeat, neither spoke. Each was aware of the other's presence, of the lives they carried, of the history and experiences that had led them to this very point. The billionaire woman's tears glistened on her cheeks, and in that silence, she felt the full force of emotion she had been holding back for so long. The waitress, initially startled, looked down at the extended hands, then up into the billionaire woman's eyes, sensing the sincerity, the vulnerability, and the depth of feeling conveyed without a single word. It was a gesture that transcended explanation, a universal language of human connection that needed no introduction. The small cafe, the hum of other customers, even the world outside, ceased to exist for that instant, replaced by the warmth and gravity of two hearts recognizing each other. Then, slowly, naturally, the hug happened. It began gently, cautiously, as if each woman was testing the boundaries of a profoundly intimate moment, but it quickly deepened, enveloping them in a shared warmth that spoke of respect, empathy, and unspoken understanding. The billionaire woman's arms wrapped carefully around the waitress, and the waitress responded with equal sincerity, both holding, both feeling, both letting the moment exist fully without distraction or interference. It was not a hug born of obligation, nor one staged for anyone's approval. It was spontaneous, raw, and intensely human, a hug that carried decades of experience, struggle, triumph, and love, a hug that said, without words, I see you, I honor you, and I am moved by the life you have lived. The pendant of the necklace swayed gently between them as if joining in the acknowledgement of this sacred exchange, its soft glimmer catching the cafe light, a silent witness to the connection unfolding. As they held each other, time seemed to stretch, seconds expanding into something much larger, larger than the walls of the cafe, larger than their individual lives. It was a hug that held stories, tears, and unspoken emotions, a hug that bridged worlds that normally never intersected. The billionaire woman, usually so composed, felt her heart open wider than she had in years, letting vulnerability flow freely, letting humanity shine through the layers of privilege and expectation. The waitress, too, felt an unexpected release, a quiet joy that came from being seen, being honored, and being acknowledged in a way that was rare and precious. She felt the weight of her own journey, the struggles and triumphs she had endured, validated and appreciated in a single, simple, yet profound embrace. The warmth of the hug radiated outward, touching the air around them, softening the cafe atmosphere, and creating a moment that would be remembered forever by both women. When the embrace finally loosened, neither let go immediately, lingering for a heartbeat longer as if unwilling to return to the ordinary world just yet. Their eyes met again, tears still in the billionaire woman's eyes, a soft smile forming on the waitress's lips, and in that quiet exchange, no words were necessary. The hug had spoken everything, conveying gratitude, admiration, empathy, and a shared recognition of life's beauty and fragility. It was a moment that would linger in both of their hearts, an encounter that neither wealth nor circumstance could diminish, a hug that transformed a simple cafe visit into a profound memory, a story of connection, human kindness, and the extraordinary power of seeing and honoring someone fully. As the billionaire woman and the waitress slowly pulled back from their embrace, the cafe seemed to hum with a subtle shift, a change in atmosphere that went beyond the clinking of cups or the soft chatter of conversation. Something quiet yet powerful had occurred, and even those who had not been paying close attention felt it. A ripple of emotion moved through the room, almost imperceptible at first, like the soft stirring of wind before a storm. A few customers glanced up from their laptops or coffee cups, their eyes widening as they noticed the tears still glistening on the billionaire woman's cheeks. They whispered softly to one another, their voices hushed but filled with curiosity, admiration, and a touch of awe. "Did you see that?" one said, pointing subtly toward the two women. "It's beautiful," murmured another, uncertain how to put into words what they had witnessed. The scene was simple, two strangers connecting, but it carried an intensity that felt almost sacred, a moment that transcended the ordinary. Some of the regular cafe staff paused mid-task, trays in hand, glancing toward the pair. Their initial surprise softened into a quiet smile as they watched the lingering gaze between the billionaire woman and the waitress. There was something undeniably moving about the scene, something that reminded them why they loved human stories, why small gestures of kindness, acknowledgement, and empathy mattered so much. Even the most hardened or busy of hearts could not ignore it. A young couple seated near the window leaned slightly closer to one another, exchanging quiet observations. "I think she's crying," the young woman said softly, voice barely above a whisper, "and she's hugging her. It's like they just connected." Her partner nodded, feeling a strange warmth spreading through his chest, a sudden awareness of the invisible threads that link people together. "It's real," he replied, eyes fixed on the scene. "Like a real human moment, not staged or fake, just pure." Some customers took out their phones, capturing the moment discreetly, yet even in recording it, they seemed to understand that this was not about showing off, going viral, or sharing on social media for likes. It was about witnessing something profoundly human, something that reminded them of the power of empathy, the beauty of noticing someone's story, and the extraordinary weight a simple act of acknowledgement could carry. The air in the cafe felt lighter, warmer, somehow softer, as though The hug had left a lingering glow around the two women. Even those who hadn't seen the necklace, the story, or the tears could feel the tension dissolve into something deeply moving. It was as if the human spirit had revealed itself in its rawest, most beautiful form, without words, without expectation, without judgment, just connection, recognition, and a shared understanding of what it meant to honor another person's journey. The billionaire woman and the waitress had not only touched each other's hearts, they had reminded everyone present of the quiet power of noticing, of empathy, of human kindness. Some bystanders wiped their own eyes discreetly, moved by the vulnerability and authenticity of the moment. They felt a mix of admiration, awe, and inspiration, a desire to carry a little more compassion into their own lives. For a few minutes, the cafe was more than a place for coffee. It had become a living space of emotion, a theater of humanity. A reminder that even ordinary places could hold extraordinary experiences if someone noticed, if someone cared, if someone paused. As the waitress returned to her duties, carefully balancing her tray and smiling softly at the customers, and as the billionaire woman gathered her belongings with a quiet reverence, the whispers continued, but now they carried respect and reflection rather than curiosity. People began sharing their own stories in hushed tones, thinking about small acts of kindness they had received or witnessed. The encounter had become contagious, not in a viral sense, but in an emotional sense, spreading inspiration and warmth quietly from heart to heart. By the time the billionaire woman left the cafe, the impact of the moment lingered, not just for her and the waitress, but for everyone who had witnessed it. Everyone left with a subtle shift in perspective, a gentle reminder that every life carries stories, that empathy is powerful, and that the smallest acknowledgement of another person's journey can resonate far beyond the moment itself. The hug, the tears, the necklace, all had created a chain reaction of emotion, proving that even in a world focused on success, wealth, and appearances, humanity always finds a way to shine. And in that simple cafe, the ordinary became extraordinary, not because of who was wealthy or who served coffee, but because two people had seen each other fully, had acknowledged each other's stories, and had shared a moment that would ripple far beyond the walls of that small space, leaving an invisible, lasting mark on every heart present.